Okay guys, we got a hole in the drywall. So we had another hook like this in the wall. Kids were putting their towels on them. And it pulled out. The kids, I don't know what they were doing, trying to pull the towels off of there instead of lifting them off. So that fell off. There was anchors in there. So it's created a hole. So I'm gonna go through how I'm gonna fix this here. So if you see, I have some of the drywall is peeled up. So what I gotta do is I'm gonna cut that out. I'm just gonna score it with a razor blade. Kind of go through that, just clean up the mess a little bit, and I'm just gonna use joint compound to fix that. Score the drywall right here. I just want to get rid of this piece as best I can. I might need to cut a little. I think I just need to score it a little harder. Okay. So we don't have to replace any drywall. We just need to basically put some compound over this and let it dry up. So what I've done is I've gone through and just kind of clean up the whole, any loose edges of the drywall, just kind of peeled it off or cut it away. So now I'm just going to kind of fill this up with Sheetrock brand all-purpose joint compound. So I'm going to use that. I've got a couple putty knives to be able to smooth it over, and we'll slowly start working it up in layers. All right, so I'm just mixing up my joint compound, making sure it's all mixed well together. Okay, so I'm just going to get some on the putty knife here, and then I'm just going to kind of fill in this gap. Now, I'm not going to fill it up all the way. What I want to do is I want it to dry a little bit. Got 2 holes over here I'm going to work on. So what I want to do is I want to just get some in there and let it start drying. Once it's kind of dried up a little bit, I want to then put another coat in there, because if I put it all in at once, the compound in the back is not going to dry and it'll start cracking. So I want it to kind of dry in stages. All right, I got the heat gun here. I'm just going to apply a little bit of heat just to kind of speed up the drying process. And, it's pretty firm, so what we're going to do is we're going to get a little more. Kind of just do the same thing. We're just going to slowly fill in this hole. Now, to minimize the amount of sanding I'm going to need to do, I'm going to use a wider putty knife. I just go over it so that way it scrapes any of the excess above the. So it scraped quite a bit off. Scrape this off over here. Okay, so it's getting pretty close to level with the surface, so I just need to let that dry a little more, and then I'll add probably a final coat. Now this wall already has kind of like a textured finish to it already. So it's it doesn't have to look perfect in order to be able to blend into the surface of the wall. So we'll let that dry, put a little more heat to it, and a couple more hours we'll be ready for a final coat. Okay, the second coat's dry. We're just going to do a third coat. Try to get it more level with the surface of the wall. It's probably been 5-6 hours since the second coat. This can take a all-day process here, so I'm gonna fill that in as best we can. Then we're gonna get the bigger putty knife, tape knife, and just kind of go over it. Smooth it out as best we can on the wall. We're gonna do this side. All right, so I'll let that dry a little bit, and then I'll go back over it just like with another thin coat, just with this, and then we'll probably sand it down and be able to start painting. So getting closer. Okay, this is the result of it drying overnight. So we've got 3 coats on here. This is the third coat, was kind of a lighter coat. It's still not exactly flush to the wall. It still needs 1 or 2 more coats, but this can take a little bit of time just because you got to let the coats dry just so it's you know, it doesn't crack fully. So there's a slight crack here, but I think as I get a 4th coat on here, just a nice thin 4th coat, let that dry, I'll be ready to sand it. Okay, here we are putting on the 4th coat. Just gonna put on a really light coat just to get it even with the surface. And I'll use the thicker putty knife to really smooth that out. Okay, here we're using our wider one. It's wider than the repair area. Just press down. Alrighty, we'll let that dry up and then we'll see how it looks. Okay, we have the 4th coat all dried and it's looking pretty good, looking pretty smooth. I think I'm just gonna do 1 quick little skim coat over this and then we'll let that dry and we'll sand it. So, almost to the end. Okay, coat 5 is dry. Now it's sanding time. I'm going to use a 80 grit sandpaper, go over it, and then I'm going to smooth it out with a 150. Okay, this is the 180 grit. Okay, this is after sanding it, both with the 80 grit and the 180. So now I'm just going to wipe it off with a cloth, damp cloth, let it dry, and then we're going to paint it. Okay, we've got our paint. We're going to get a first coat on here. Over here as well. I'm going to do 2 coats of paint. This first coat's really going to soak in. Once that's dry, we'll do a 2nd coat, and then we'll be all set to go. The paintbrush is leaving some brush streaks, so I'm using a roller just to give it more of an orange peel look to it like the rest of the wall has. So let that dry. You can still kind of see the spot there, but it definitely looks a lot better. It's, you know, you have to kind of look for it to find it. Luckily, it's behind a door. But that's how I did the repair. If there's a better way out there, feel free to share with me. I'm happy to learn. I'm just a do-it-yourself homeowner. But pretty simple. Joint compound, some putty knives, and some paint. And just some time. It really just took time waiting for each coat to dry and letting the paint dry. So thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel.